welcome to another Clever Dicks podcast. In this podcast, we talk to Laura Quilter. Laura is an Auckland-based competitive swimmer that has actually even got some world records at this stage. Okay, it is in ice swimming. She's represented New Zealand a couple of times at the Com Games and World Champs. Retired now and got a real job, but she's still helping out people with some online courses and online swimming. A really interesting chat. She's actually got faster as she's got a little bit more mature, even though she's not putting in the miles. I think you'll find this a fascinating conversation. Okay, welcome to another Clever Dicks podcast. In this podcast, we're talking to Laura. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's awesome to have you here. Laura, before we get into it, I thought we'd just give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your swim story. You know, how you got into it, what it means to you, everything, and then we can start having a bit more of a natter.
Cool. So I'm a born and bred swimmer. I was thrown in to learn to swim by mum and dad, essentially just to be safe at the ocean side. Grew up in Gisborne, so lots of big surf around Wainui. And I was the kid that I loved training. So that was actually more exciting than racing, which was weird. And it just kept me going. I swam until I was 18 in Gisborne, and then I moved to Auckland and joined the high performance program with the intention of Olympics, all that kind of stuff. Fell a little bit short of that. I tried for 3 Olympics and didn't quite make the cut, but I did enjoy one Commonwealth Games in 2014, and I was a part of the New Zealand World Champs Surf Lifesaving team for 3 rounds, and that was pretty unreal because we did manage to win those championships and was the first team to win both the pool and the Ocean Cup, which was such a special team to be a part of.
That's good. So you were in the same team as Bucky at some stage?
No, Bucky was a little bit before.
A little bit before. Yeah.
But no, I know Bucky. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey, and I feel very lucky that swimming for me is going to be a lifelong journey. So a lot of my friends who were excellent swimmers, they almost have just this aversion to it now. They can't get back in the pool, but for me it's almost like meditation. It's a movement I really enjoy, and they probably will never stop it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's we've spoken to swimmers of all kinds of varieties here, you know, from like really competitive and long distance swimmers to people who are, you know, I don't know if I call them very average because they've all done amazing sort of performances, but, you know, they might not be fast. So, yeah, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, I prefer the short, fast events. I've always been loved the sprinting a lot more. So, you know, the 200s were even a push. So 50, 100 metre races are kind of my pet love.
So we first met you when you went down and you were swimming in some pretty darn cold water. And initially you were just going to do some of the shorter events, but you went longer and longer. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the ice swimming champs? And
So that still feels like that was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. So I suppose, getting into ice swimming, I literally found the sport on social media and was really intrigued by both. I nurse as my work, so the physiological aspect of what happens to the body when you're in that kind of temperature was really interesting to me. And then also the performance side, so training for swimming in an environment that I would be so uncomfortable in. Because for me, 50 metres freestyle is not a difficult undertaking, but 50 metres in 2 degrees is probably more challenging. So when we got down to Alexandra, the whole buzz of that community, meeting all you guys, and I kind of just got sucked up into the atmosphere and thought, oh, let's just see, you know, what a 500 metre feels like. And given this, at this point, my only intention was to swim the 50 and 100 metres, and my longest, so I trained in an ice bath as well. If I'm being fully honest, I think I did 2 sea swims in the cold. Most of my training was literally sitting still in an ice bath, and the longest one I think I did was about 5 or 6 minutes. So that was one, I suppose, fearful side of me. I'm normally a very well prepared athlete. I like to train, I like to have a very specific plan. So this for me was not only outside of my comfort zone, but was outside of my training protocol. So the 500 was a huge challenge. But afterwards I kind of thought, oh, that wasn't, you know, it was hard, but could I double it? And I actually chatted to Susan and a few others, and I said, hey, this is what I felt like after the 500. do you think I could do the K? And she was so funny. She goes, absolutely, just do it. So from 100 to 1,000. Oh my gosh. Like, I still remember having to change my entire stroke because you almost can't, I couldn't feel my hands at all, but having to rotate 90 just to get my arms over because my shoulders were so cold. Like, that was a different experience. But yeah, it was absolutely wild, and would definitely recommend it. I think that recovery journey, the shaking and just having your body, like, just giving in to letting it look after you, because you just can't do anything. Like, after a 100-metre race, you're a bit puffed and the heart rate comes down pretty quickly. After a K in 2 degrees, and, like, obviously even further, Duncan, you swim, I don't even know how many Ks. It's just letting your body look after you. Yeah.
That's quite interesting that you sort of summed it up by saying you've got to just give in and let your body do what it needs to do, because that's what it is, right? You've got to just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and that was a ride. Like, what got me is, obviously, first time experience this kind of cold, and I'd be chatting to you, be like, oh, okay, we've recovered, and then the shaking hits again, and it was kind of this roller coaster of I'm okay, and then the shivers start. The technical word is thermogenesis, so the body kind of shivers to create warmth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, an absolute ride. I'm okay, I'm not okay. I'm okay, I'm not okay.
Were you nervous through that process? Were you worried, or how did it feel?
Nerves, I don't know how to sum what I was feeling. I was a little bit scared at one point when I was really nauseous, and I hallucinated a little bit with sparkles, so I had to close my eyes because of the nausea. And I felt a little bit bad because I had my strategy a little bit. I had a relatively tight suit on, not my tightest one. I will just have to say that, because obviously people need to help undress you.
Yes.
But I remember just saying, cut it off. And the suit was worth over $300 or $400. But I was like, just get it off me, eh? Like,
Who was your buddy?
I had Bethany, who was absolutely wonderful. But then there were a lot of people there, I don't really remember, but it was kind of weird. I thought that I was fine the whole time, but, on reflection, Belinda, my other, she's a great mate, she kind of said, oh, you were very out of it, because I couldn't stand up afterwards. Yeah. I had, I could walk, but with support. And that was quite interesting, seeing the difference in, I suppose, the recovery, because my friend Cameron, who's also a great swimmer, he could mobilise independently. So he got out, he stood up, and he walked into the change rooms and then went into medical. Whereas, like, even though we both finished it, I couldn't stand up, and I was a lot less coherent. And I found that really interesting, because we've got relatively similar physiques.
Yes.
Tall, lean. Our asset is that we swim a little bit faster, so our exposure time is less.
Yep.
But I felt that I was not quite as, I suppose I didn't come out as well as he did.
It's very interesting that, right? Because I think different people just handle the cold differently. And so maybe a couple of things to unpack. I know for me personally is, speed's relative, right? So it's the sort of energy that you give out to swim at a certain pace. And for me, if I swim too fast in the beginning, I'm super poked at the end, and I feel like I'm not going to get to the end. So I start off my swims consciously going slowly, sort of keeping something in the bag for the end. Whereas I sit and I watch the more competitive guys like yourself, and you guys are chasing times, you're chasing records, right? So you're gunning it from the start. And I would imagine that if and when the wheels potentially fall off with 100 or 200 meters to go, they fall off properly, right? Did that happen, or did you have enough in the gas tank?
Wow, that's where I'm so glad there was a presentation by one of the safety team. She gave a bit of a... Joy gave an awesome strategy kind of presentation, and that for me was really useful. What I think is still funny is I started super easy, knowing what was ahead of me, but my time still went from 34 seconds to 51 per 50. Like, that for me was really quite amazing, because if I went to the pool today and tried to swim 51 seconds for 50...
You'd struggle, it's too slow.
I would struggle to go that slow. And the funniest part about that, the speed... the speed maintenance is, on the last 25, I was like, let's finish strong. And literally the tiniest lift and effort, my body just... I felt like I was sprinting the back end of 100, even though it was only the most mild lift and effort. And even in the last 25, I slowed it down again after about 4 strokes trying to go fast because I felt so unwell. There was only one moment I remember looking at the flip chart, and you can see it in my splits, where I thought, oh, this is like, I didn't feel right. And I was like, if I feel like my breathing's not under control, if I can't keep my hips and my legs up, I'm probably going to stop. But and then I felt a little bit better. And I was also mentally very competitive because I didn't want to be this one that was just kind of I was like, come on, it's only 8 to go, it's 200.
Yeah.
But I think that's I was very aware of all the risks because, as I said, I was interested in the physiology, so I didn't want to get a neuropathy, which is, that change in sensation in your fingers from nerve damage being too cold, the cardiac arrhythmias, all this kind of stuff. So it was really interesting having this really competitive mindset, but also not wanting to be stupid. Yeah.
And your body's going to do what it's going to do, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, what we've learned, because so that's in a pool environment, right? So you must know, when we take that to a lake environment and you're 500 meters from shore, it's even more sort of, not, I don't want to say risky, but the chances of, if things go wrong, they go wrong quite badly, right? So the community that you're with and the people that are seconding you and supporting you are key to an event like this. And for me, for example, you mentioned Joy, having her literally walking up and down and looking at her face every time I breathed was comforting, because hey, I can push as hard as I can go. And if shit hits the fan, hey, somebody's got me, right? So it's a nerve-wracking environment.
Yeah, and when you said about the support, I have never, I've grown up competing, and you can hear the crowds. Like, there've been some events where you can hear people screaming, but nothing compares to when you're touch turning in 2 degrees and people are yelling your name, they're yelling support. Like, that genuinely made such a difference.
Yes.
And it's so funny because it was only in the longer ones where you're slowing down, you're finding it really hard. In the sprints, I think I'm so focused and I'm so concerned about the performance and the strategy that I don't really hear anything.
Yes.
In those longer ones, I honestly don't know if I would have been able to do it without that support, and it made such a difference. Yeah.
You got to have the guys urging you on. So if I can ask maybe just a more sort of technical question, right? So what is your 50-meter personal best in a warm environment, and what did you manage to swim in an ice environment?
So I actually tested this. So I literally went and did a time trial in a 27-degree pool from a push and a touch turn.
Yep.
And I did that for the 50 butterfly and the 50 freestyle.
Yeah.
In the 50 freestyle, I think I went a 28.0 in the warm pool, and I went a 27.5 in the cold. So
okay.
dropped half a second.
Shock to the system.
Oh, no, absolutely. Shock to the system. As I said, the environment, everyone there, just like, I think competitive like that environment of the competition makes it different. Yeah. But that shocked me like none other. The butterfly was slower, which I thought was interesting, by about half a second. But yeah, I thought it would be much faster in the warm pool. Yeah.
Not that much faster, eh?
No, and I literally wore same goggles, cap, togs.
Yeah.
Like, it was as controlled as I could make it without, obviously, competition was the biggest difference.
Yes. And a different environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were both touch turns, right?
Both touch,
okay.
Yeah. When we spoke to Cameron, he said he was definitely slower in the cold.
Yes, the 100, I think, was about a second slower, but I thought it would be 2 to 3 seconds slower, because you've got, it feels like I'm almost, to put it like, disembodied, because when I swim, I'm very much aware of like how the position of my hands feels with the pressure of the water, what my feet feel like. But when you're in that cold, I feel like I know what my hand should be doing and what it should be feeling, but because it's so cold, I can't feel that. So you're just almost, it's so weird. I can see my hand, but I can't really feel it that well. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So, just moving on to the next thing, you're doing a lot of coaching and you're quite active on the socials at the moment. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And we were talking about it. I was with some swimmers yesterday, and one of your latest ones, you said, you've got to be like a needle, not a noodle. And the question came up was, what if I'm shaped like a banana or maybe like a dumpling? How am I going to do the needle thing?
That's so good. Oh, I love it. So you'll still be a needle, but it's just maybe
A fat needle.
like the needle relates to the inside of the body, and it doesn't matter how much adipose tissue or fat you've got. If everyone's got a spine and the abdominal muscles, I mean, they could have been traumatized from birth, if you've had a cesarean or something. But as a whole, most people have got a spine, the abdominal muscles, the pelvic floor, and the diaphragm. So when you're becoming a needle, thinking about the inside of your body. So when I swim, I'm trying to bring everything in, because that's what creates the needle and that's what creates that connection throughout the body. So it doesn't matter if you look like a banana or whatever the other one was, the needle relates to, like, how can I draw that kind of musculature in so that my hips and my shoulders roll together, that I'm breathing well.
Yeah.
So the needle's the inside. Everyone's got a needle.
Everyone's got a needle inside.
They just might have a bit more padding around.
They're trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Oh, no, that's cool. So, you're doing quite a lot of coaching at the moment, or is it? It's just a side hustle, is it?
At the moment, it's an absolute passion, but a side hustle. So, hoping to, like, most of the stuff now is online. Like, I started the Instagram page because when I finished competitive swimming, I just had all these ideas, and I was coaching a triathlon squad, and it was just really interesting about how to communicate ways of swimming technically right in different ways, because some people, you'd say needle, not noodle, and they would just go down the pool and look amazing, and then half the group's got no idea, and they're swimming like a noodle, and you're kind of thinking, well, how else can I explain these sometimes quite complex technical aspects? Because swimming is this, like, rhythmical dance that's the entire body, right? So when newbies kind of start and they're frustrated because they feel like a rock, it's so understandable, because not only are you having to coordinate your whole body, you're in an environment that would kill you if you can't breathe properly, so naturally people are wanting to lift the head out, and you're also in this water, which is not the most natural substance. So at the moment where I'm at is basically I offer an online squad, so that's more structured training with some technical videos, and then hoping to run some form of technique clinics, and then my actual coaching is just with the North Harbour Triathlon Squad. Great bunch of people.
What's the name of the website if people want to check you out and get some help?
The best way would be through the Instagram, because I deliver via really long URL.
Yes.
Yeah, so the Instagram handle is auramove.nz, and that had a whole nother story. So aura is like your spirit and how you feel during swimming and movement, so that's where that came from, because some people have thought it was just my name with it all locked off.
Bit of a typo.
Bit of a typo.
No, I think you did on, because like most swimmers, you're always interested in improving, but sometimes somebody will say something I should do that, and it just doesn't work, or it just doesn't resonate.
Absolutely.
So you need to lots of different messages, and eventually you're going to find something that resonates, that just helps that aspect of your swimming. Yeah.
And the other part I love, especially with adults, because I did used to do a lot of swim teaching with young kids and things, but oh my gosh, they're so malleable and they're so quick to learn, and their bodies just move so well. But with adults, having the challenge of people with previous shoulder surgeries, limited mobility, that was one of the biggest challenge was trying to figure out for this person here, like, how can we make them the best swimmer that they can be, because they're never going to be an Olympic level swimmer, and that's absolutely fine. That's for the top 1%. So with one guy, he's got really limited overhead range, really strong at the front of the body anteriorly, but that means that high elbow position is almost inaccessible. So with that, it's kind of extending as much as we can to get into a good pull position, so making sure that the hands are well positioned, but working more to a higher stroke rate and a more down eye position to help bring the legs up, to be like, well, body position is going to help reduce your drag. So for him, can't get the great catch, but let's up the stroke rate and get the eyes down. And that worked really well.
Yeah. To make him the best swimmer he can be, right? So if he has a 20 or 30% improvement, that's amazing. So you mentioned you were training triathletes.
Yeah.
So again, that's very different to your background, right? So you're training people to be as good a swimmer as they can be in the pool. But then there's obviously an added element of they're going to throw a wetsuit on and they're going to go and swim in the ocean afterwards, right? So how does that balance work from an adult training perspective?
Yeah, so that's a big challenge. Is first, the most important thing is identifying the goal, because within that squad there'll be people that just want to be fit swimmers and don't actually compete in triathlon, and those that are gunning for age group wins.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing for me in early coaching was getting away from this long, lean, the Daniel Loader, Ian Thorpe, thank you. It was like Ian Jones, I know. Not right there.
He's still long and lean.
But that long, because I had this obsession with, the longer the better, the stroke's got to look rhythmic, it's got to look beautiful. Absolutely not. If you're dealing with chop and waves, trying to get them the best they can be in the pool, but also recognising that it's going to change, because the wetsuit, right, like, kick, I think, is really important, but you don't need to be the best kicker. You just need to have an ability to reduce drag and provide a bit of balance with your kick.
Yes.
Because when you chuck the wetsuit on, a great kick technique is going to help, but the wetsuit's going to do 3/4 of it.
And also, technically, a lot of those triathletes are the old days, they were trying to save their legs for the run and the cycle and all of that, right? So it's a completely different scenario, I guess. Eh?
And it definitely is, and it's been a steep learning curve, because for me, like in the pool, there's certain people in that squad that, there's no way they get near me in the pool, and they'll keep up with me or pass me in the ocean, and I'm just like, a little bit having this rage inside my head and be like, why are they passing me? It's because I've got such a long stroke that I don't have that aggression and that kind of high stroke rate to mitigate the crowds and the wash.
Yes.
So like my long, beautiful pool stroke gets dominated in the ocean.
Okay, so maybe there's a bit of a path for you there to learn a couple of more new tricks in the ocean down the line. We had a laugh the other day. We were interviewing young Alex Duncan, who dominates the Ocean Series, for example. And we were talking about stroke, and he mentioned, when it's rough and choppy, how he asked us the question, do you ever, when you're swimming and you go over the crest of a wave, just pull air? Because, and I mean, it's never happened to us because we don't have such a fast stroke rate, but, that's the difference, right? He's pulling so fast. When he ramps over the top of a wave, often you're pulling air. Yeah. And how do you train for that in the pool, right? It's impossible.
That's where specificity comes in, like exposure. If you want to get better in the ocean, you've got to swim in the ocean, I think, to get used to the technique and stuff.
Yeah, that's very cool. Surf lifesaving. So Jim has a long history with surf lifesaving, mostly with Murray Bay and lifeguard, instructor, a whole bunch of other things. My girls are busy doing their bronze award at the moment, which is pretty cool. But you had a world record. Yeah? Tell us about that.
I did. That was in the pool again, so I was never that good in the ocean.
Yes.
I carried the mannequin, so the little orange guy with no arms and no legs. Yeah. I think they weigh about 50 or 60, but the event that I did have the world record in was called the 50 mannequin carry. So you dive in, sprint to 25 metres, dive down, pick him up, and then carry him one-armed to the end.
Okay, so he's waiting at the other side of the pool for you?
He's on the bottom at about 25 metres, yeah.
Okay, so it's interesting, right? So the first 25 is really just pure swimming?
Yeah.
Get to him as quick as possible?
Yeah.
You've obviously got goggles and everything on, like a normal swimmer?
Goggles and cap, swimsuit, yeah.
Cool. Touch the end of the pool at the other side? Go down?
No, so it's a long course, so he...
he's halfway.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting. Right? So go down, pick him up. Has he got like any straps or anything on him, or is he just like a dead weight?
No, so you kind of just grab from the behind his neck, and it's a very awkward because you're swimming then one-armed and he's kind of hitting you in the legs and stuff. Yeah. But that was back when I was so regimented and I had very clear race plans and stuff, so that I knew I had 6 kicks underwater. I'd take 2 strokes, take a breath. It was 12 strokes before the dive down. And then the key was I would try launch the mannequin up so that when I came forward, it basically went into my wash. So that was I was a very nervous racer. So for me, visualizing those 6 kicks, having really focusing on the stuff that I could control helped to keep my nerves in a really good place. Because I think nerves are great and they can help you to perform really well. But if you get too nervous, then the body can bind up. You can get a bit more stiff and then you just don't enjoy it as much.
And what type of time would you swim carrying a 50-kilogram mannequin? Mannequin's the dude in the shop that you dress up. It's very different. We should have a race with one of those, yeah.
That was a 32.7.
That's crazy. Wow. I can't do that normally.
Because those things are just so unwieldy. Whenever I've seen people doing that racing, I mean, it's so much technique to actually get it into a position where it impacts you as little as possible. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's actually crazy looking at the standard around the world now, because that record was broken last year or this year, I think. And, I think I used to do the 100 toe, which is a different event, in like 1 minute and 2 seconds. And those girls are going like well under the 55 mark now. So the sport in itself has just advanced so quickly over the last few years. It's been amazing to watch.
Yeah, that is good. I must admit, I spent a long time in surf lifesaving, but I didn't do any competitions. I never saw myself as competitive. I know a lot of people who do it just for the fun of participating, and I get that, but it wasn't my thing. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough too. Yeah.
What's the conversion between the competitive aspect and reality? So, for example, if you had to sort of dash off from the tower at the beach into the ocean to go and save some dude that's got his hand up, I mean, does it convert the lessons that you're learning, in the mannequin race versus pulling somebody out in reality? Are they legit or completely different?
I feel like that is very different. So, in terms of like the actual lifeguard training, there is so much more important. So when you're doing the bronze, I still remember, like, I'm 32 now, so when I was 14 and trained, I still remember them talking about putting the float between you and the person that's in danger, because the likelihood is that they're just going to clamber on top of you and you could end up with 2 people drowning.
Yes.
So I think a mannequin sitting on the ground in a pool, I don't think it translates as well to what you actually learn during the bronze training.
Also, just the fact that he's got no arms and legs, right?
And he moves like a log. Like, nothing moves, whereas a human body is much different. You can't even, because I've tried it. I've tried dragging someone by the neck, and not only is it incredibly painful for them, it's so different. Like, it just, it's awful. So learning that more, strapping them with the one-armed on the back, it's slow and keeping their head above water, and hopefully you've got someone else with the paddleboard or something coming. Or the
just to help you get to the
But I
beach.
think that it's... the guys that compete are typically much more capable lifeguards because they've spent so much time. Yeah. So maybe it's not as specific, but there's a whole bunch of lifeguards that kind of go through, they do their surf lifeguard award, and then, I don't need to swim anymore, and their socials are on the beach. So I'd rather, you need to have that kind of mixture where you're doing your patrol hours and everything, but you're also still doing the training. And that's why I think sport's so important, because it's that fun aspect that actually gets people engaged and doing more.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you bring up the training, because for like Surf Life Savings tag, isn't it for life? And I think having the mindset that, staying active throughout life, and especially if you're a lifeguard, knowing that you can actually help someone and be safe swimming out there is really, really important. But that's the one thing I think a lot of people struggle with if they have competed to a high level, is finding the joy in training afterwards. And that's something I found really challenging. Like, I struggled quite a lot with it, if I'm honest. And my partner at the time, partner still is, was quite funny. He just said, I was in the gym one time just like absolutely over it. And I said, well, I've got nothing to train for anymore. And I was really sad, and nothing was helping. And he goes, well, why can't you just train to move? And I know it sounds ridiculously basic, but I'd never thought about it my whole life. Every movement I was doing was to improve performance. And it was just like this one statement where I suddenly thought, yeah, I can literally just train to move, or train to just enjoy feeling my heart rate improve and this kind of stuff. So that was like a pivotal moment moving from competition into lifelong movement. Yeah.
So, I mean, we often discuss on this podcast the fact that there's so many kids that swim competitively and amazingly, really, really good swimmers. And a lot of the coaches are, it's 5 o'clock in the morning and it's 4Ks before school and it's up and down and it's fast and it's... When they get to a certain level where they are potentially not going to make the Olympics or the whatever it is, and they think, okay, well, why am I doing all of this? They generally just leave the sport completely, right? And that's really sad, right? We would love to be able to get those little guys into water swimming, triathlons, water polo, or
Surf lifesaving.
Or just...
But even surf lifesaving, you get to the end of school and then, you've got the part-time jobs and then uni comes and you're leaving home and life changes so much. There's just this massive drop-off, as people are transitioning into the next stage of their life. We've got to work out a way to try to retain more people and get the fun part of it. Yeah.
That's one of the biggest challenges with swimming, is because it can, unfortunately, because of how intense it is, it can suck the fun out, especially when you are reaching the end of school era. And you're so right. I would love for masters swimming or that kind of, area to build in New Zealand, because that area is so hard for young people to keep swimming and enjoy it. So yeah, there's got to be a way for, especially I love it when you see like a young group in with their mates and they're just having a bit of fun, doing a few laps and that kind of stuff. So I think finding people that want to swim just for the sake of swimming is really important.
We actually had a bit of a giggle this morning. We swam, we swam from Waiheke to
Murray's Bay.
This morning, which was pretty cool. Nice, beautiful day out there, blue skies, flat oceans. But when we got to the end, there was a group of young girls. Must have been, I don't know, Jim, 16, 17, 18, or
something
whatever
like
the case might be. And we recognised all the faces from Millennium. So we, hi, you greet, you don't really know much about the people. But it was just so nice to see them at the ocean doing something other than just swimming up and down in the pool, right? And they were having fun, right? They didn't swim far, from what I understood. They probably swam up and down the bay.
You just need to have fun.
A kilometre or kilometre and a half, and they were so chilled, and they had just taken their wetsuits off, and they were going to go and jump off the pier and do a bit of sun tanning. And I mean, that's what you want for kids, right? That's what you want for life. So it was nice to see. And I mean, yeah, Laura, no pressure, but you've got to figure out a way to get more kids into open water, man. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay, technical question from my side. Race suits. How much do they help?
Immensely. Huge.
Do they?
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to say for sprinting, but for everything, right? Yeah. So, I think...
I'm assuming they're so uncomfortable you just want to swim faster to get out of them, right?
Oh my gosh, because I had my foray back into competitive swimming for the first time in 8 years this year, which was an adventure, but I invested in the top end suit because I was chasing a record, and I was like, well, might as well go all in. When that suit arrived, it took me 45 minutes to put
get
on.
Into it.
Yeah, to stuff my body into this thing. And it's funny because I hadn't thought I'd changed that much since swimming, but you definitely, especially being a woman, your shape does change, and holy moly, that was an experience, and I had bruising around my hips trying to get this thing off. But in the end, it really does make a difference because there's a lot of, I think NASA's almost involved in or they've, Speedo is very, very technical, and they've got almost water repellent materials and properties.
Compression technology.
Yeah. So it does make a difference, but it's also very expensive. And this is one of my challenges with the youth, is where I'm save them once you get a bit older, because.
And then so I mean, what is I'm guessing a decent race suit these days? Ladies' suits, obviously more fabric, a little bit more expensive, but you're looking at $1,200, $1,300.
Yeah, it's a huge investment, and you know what the worst part is? If you look into the recommended use time, you get
one season, couple of swims.
Couple of swims.
And that's if, and I know a lot of the kids, right, because they're fighting with the suit, you're fighting, and somebody puts a finger through it.
I know. But in the same token, it's quite funny. This year at the Nationals, I swam 3 lifetime bests, even better than when I was in my 20s, and I wore a suit from Commonwealth Games.
Well, there
2014.
You
go. So what's my maths like? That's 8 years, right? Yeah. An 8-year-old suit, and I swam at best time. So
do they actually?
Yeah,
All right.
They do. But I did find that very interesting. Yeah. And then I swam slower a couple of months later in my $1,000 suit. I'll take that one on the chin.
So, I can see you've got a question. So
No,
question
you
from me. So, one of the things that you've spoken about before, and I'm super interested, if I go back 8 years, Commonwealth Games, right, sort of what was the level of training in terms of how many swims a week, how much mileage per week, for example, were you putting into your swimming to swim X amount of time for 50 meters versus 8 years later now, breaking those records and being 8 years older? Are you doing less? Are you doing more? What have you done differently to swim faster? And I guess maybe the last question is, I mean, do the kids overdo it?
Oh, I like that question. So in terms of the journey, 8 years ago, I was focusing more on the 1 and 200. Mm-hmm. So if I'm comparing apples and apples, I was still racing the 50 back in 2014, but it wasn't the focus.
Yep.
So that I have to make sure that it's, it was a slightly different focus. But I was traditionally in what most New Zealand kids do. I was in squad swimming back in 2014. And at the start of a season, we were doing upwards of 2 hours twice a day. So swimming, 5 to, I think my longest sessions were only, think about that now, 8 Ks. My gosh, for me it's very long. So at the start of the season, we'd be doing around 10 Ks a day. And I was swimming eight times a week, 8 to 10, and then 2 gyms around that.
So you're swimming 60, 70 kilometers a week to race 100 meters.
Yes.
That's insane.
I know. Yeah. So that was the process back then, and very little focus on the strength and conditioning side. Okay. So I think in 2014 I could do probably 1 strict chin up, and I think I could do 10 with a bit of kipping and a bit of movement at the bottom. So fast forward to now, I can do 10 strict chin ups.
How many can you do, Jim? 2.
Oh, that's pretty good. I love chin-ups. I think they've got such a good relationship with swimming and strength.
I absolutely fear the time when I stand there underneath and I look up. I'd love to know.
That's like a real honesty exercise, that, eh?
Yeah, and the satisfaction you get from being able to, I don't know what it is, just being able to pull your own body weight up to a bar is so satisfying.
It's kind of like ice swimming. It's type 2 fun.
Yes.
You don't enjoy it at the time, but afterwards, I did it.
No, absolutely.
So there was some crazy dude, I think it was last year, who I can't remember his name right now, but his dad was like one of these ultramarathon crazy dudes that would go and run for freaking 6 days and cover hundreds of miles. And his son did the pull-up, 24-hour pull-up world record.
Yeah.
Right? And I found that was quite interesting as well, because, I mean, you sort of picture the guy doing pull-ups for 24 hours. It's not quite that, but how he did it was he had I think he did it like by the minute, and in a minute he had to do 10 pull-ups or whatever. I can't remember what it was. So he might do 2 and then stop for 10 seconds and then do another 3, that type of scenario, and then just carry on the whole day, right? And I mean, that's something like 8,000 pull-ups in a day.
Oh. I wonder what his hands look like. He would have just had blisters on blisters on blisters.
That's almost as appealing as doing a 24-hour swim.
His hands were appealing.
Okay, so back to you and the training difference between 8 years ago to now.
Yeah, and then the other difference, I wasn't very fortunately, I was working but very little in 2014, and then now working full-time shift work. So also competing with like late nights, early mornings, but I don't recover nearly as fast. As I said, I'm 32, so that was one of the biggest challenges at the start, is my volume plummeted. So I was only swimming 2 to 3 Ks a session, 3 times a week, and I was gymming like 4 or 5. But I worked a little bit with Michael Weston at Coast Swimming Club, who's got great experience coaching. And I said to him in the early days when I jumped back in the water and I thought, I'm not doing nearly as much volume. I said, I'm absolutely dead to the world. And I just liked what he said, where volume and intensity are 2 sides of the same coin. So he goes, the intensity's ramped up. You can't do both kind of at the same time. Or, they're different sides of the same. I hope I'm correctly reflecting what he meant, because that's how I took it, and it made me feel a bit better that the recovery was taking so much longer, because when I got to the pool, again, training for the 50, every single session I wanted to be at 100%. And whether that was 100% technically, 100% speed-wise, and I did a lot more of resistance work in the water. So I was using parachutes, parachutes and the drag socks a lot more, which I hated, but I found really good. That was a big change. But I think if I was to pinpoint the key differences, the maturity now and the desire that, I could literally just walk away from this, it's my decision to be here. Yep. And because I was doing less, I could focus a lot more on each session, whereas you're just in the hole sometimes when you're doing that volume. So when you also talk about other kids overtraining, it's really hard, because if I sit here now, having swum the best I ever have, doing much less volume, could I have done that if it wasn't on a background of huge volume when I was younger? Because swimming is so technical, and there's no way, in my opinion, to get better at swimming without swimming, because the water moves so uniquely. You can't get on one of those pull boards, you can't do pull-ups because your hands are fixed on a bar or your hands are fixed on those paddles. When you get into the water, everything moves differently. But there's volume and then there's volume. So I think it's important to definitely do the work, but what that work looks like, I think, needs to be measured, because you don't want to be overdoing it, and you want to keep the joy in as well.
100%.
Yeah.
So, as I understand it, so much more of your work now is dry land. Do you want to tell us sort of how you kind of made that transition and the kind of things that you do? Because I think a lot of the people in New Zealand, a lot of the swimmers, they just go and swim and that's it. And they think, well, why aren't I getting better? So, from a dry land point of view, what are the kind of things that swimmers could think about doing better?
Yeah, so my approach to strength and conditioning is to become a better athlete and then to become technically better in the water. So when I'm in the gym, I'm not trying to do swim specific stuff. I'm looking at the fact that swimming requires strength from the lats. It requires full body strength really, but a lot of that kind of pulling motion. So I focus primarily on the big muscle groups that needed to be stronger. So straight away I'm into pull-ups, lat pull downs, straight arm bars, push-ups, getting stronger with the squats, and I periodized it where I wanted to get a lot stronger at the start of the season. And as I approached the nationals, becoming more explosive, so bringing in plyometric work, jumping, really fast movements, because one of the biggest issues for me, being quite tall, is my stroke rate. I couldn't get it up very high. So even if I had the strength, there's no point unless I can get my arms over faster. So one of my favourite things to do was actually, I started doing the 30-minute spin classes, and my rationale for doing that was, during some of those sessions, they cycle so fast, the hips are just moving so quickly. I was like, if I can learn to just, my neuromuscular system just goes that fast, when I get into the water, it's going to translate. So in terms of swimming specificity, it was more the muscle groups that need to be stronger, and then more specifically, I need to be fast, so I need to be able to move my body fast.
Yeah, kind of. I struggle with that. No part of me moves fast anymore.
But it's so important, especially because, as we age, I've done a personal training cert as well, and when I blend it with the nursing, it's the importance of maintaining muscle mass as we age. And for adult swimmers, I hate to say it, but it's a non-weight bearing activity. So you actually get no contact time, you're not having that, bone density is a bit of a risk if all you do is swim with no peripheral kind of loading.
You have to do the gym, right?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, I know.
I do my gym. Not enough, but I do. Yeah.
I leave the house once or twice a week and I say I'm going to gym, and then I come here.
Oh, that's so good.
So what other, because you touched on to get your arm sort of rotation quicker is obviously fundamental to swimming faster, right? Other than, you mentioned spin classes and things like that, what other type of drills can an average swimmer do to try and increase arm rotation? I don't even is that the right terminology? Arm rotation.
Yes, arm rotation, stroke rate. Yeah. So there's speed drills, which, often I do only for 15 metres. So fins on, head up polo drill.
Yes.
Water polo players, if you want to look at stroke rate, just look at those guys.
Yes,
go up
that's
and down,
actually
right?
a very important point.
Yeah. So polo drill, but the interesting part with speed drills and trying to improve stroke rate. So when we swim faster, there's 5 key variables in my opinion. The first and the most important is breathing technique. If you're doing a 50, actually not super important because you might not breathe.
Yep.
But, how do you bring in your oxygen? How do you expel it? And then conditioning that system, which comes from training. So breathing. Then it's body position. So are you horizontal in the water? Because if you've got the most beautiful catch and pull, but your legs are dragging on the bottom, it's hard. Breathing, body position.
You're talking to men more specifically there, right? Yes.
They do tend to get sinky legs.
Yes.
Hips. Your stroke length. More important is your stroke direction. So what your hands do under the water, your stroke length, and then your stroke rate. So stroke rate comes in last. If you don't have the breathing, body position, stroke direction, and stroke length down, then I would probably not be working rate.
Have you had a look at... There's something I've listened to with Brenton Ford. There's a new thing which is...
The EO swim better.
Where are you, where's the force going and things like that? Have you had a look at that?
I would love to play with the EO, but I haven't. So essentially what that is a piece of technology that sits on the palm and it measures the pressure as you move the hand through the water. So
pressure and direction, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, which is perfect. But our bodies naturally want to take the path of least resistance. So what I found when we were looking at videos of me swimming is that as the hand is tracing under the body, I would kind of... My wrist would break, essentially. So I'd flex a little bit and I would be losing a little bit of water because as the body gets tired, it naturally just wants to come out, So you're having to train yourself to hold water. And by hold water, I mean just where is the pressure and then maintaining that through the phase of the stroke. And our bodies do some funny things. You get people that sweep under the body and their fingers point to the opposite hip and go out super wide, but there's always variety as well, which I love about swimming. There's a video of Lucy Charles swimming her Ironman swim and she's dominating. She's out the front. Oh my gosh, she pulls wide.
Yes.
Like way wider than I would ever recommend for people, but I love seeing videos like that, being like, there's no one perfect technique. And even you mentioned Alex.
Yes.
I've got footage of him and then my other friend Emma, who was an Olympic open water swimmer. Both elite level open water swimmers, very, very different strokes. Emma's got this beautiful but aggressive, high cadence. It's not quite a catch-up stroke. Alex, very long, basically full catch-up.
Yes.
Yeah, very different.
It's amazing, hey?
Yeah. And even the way they breathe is different. So Alex will trickle. So when his eyes are in the water, he's slowly releasing air and then he breathes. Emma tends to hold and then she bursts her air out and then breathes.
Okay.
So even...
Which would be the best for an open water, from a theoretical point of view? Trickle, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's hard actually. I suppose I think it comes down to personal preference because breathing, I love the respiratory system because it seems really simple. You basically breathe in oxygen and you expel carbon dioxide. But the rate and the depth, so how often you're breathing and whether. So one of the hardest things to do in swimming is to breathe diaphragmatically because we're in a horizontal position and there's a bit of hydrostatic pressure actually compressing the rib cage. Learning to bring your air deep is really hard because you're also sometimes uncomfortable, and when we're uncomfortable we tend to use the neck and upper shoulder muscles, the scalenes and things, and we breathe shallow. And you imagine if you breathe shallow, not only do your neck muscles get more fatigued and you get a bit of pain, but the air sits higher in the body. And if the air sits higher, the legs drop lower. Yeah. So in terms of what is better, as long as you are expelling your carbon dioxide and bringing in enough oxygen to give energy to the tissues, it doesn't matter that much. But then someone might come back and say, well, what about the thoracic pressure? Because, if you're holding on to, if you're doing the Emma style where you burst, she might have a bit more tension through the core, possibly. But,
Well, it's such a relief to hear that there's that what I'm doing is probably right for somebody else in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of swimming, is that there's such a range. And I actually just remembered something about the strength and conditioning. I just love the confidence it can give as well, because at the Nationals, I only trained for the 50 freestyle. So my goal this year, I wanted to test a few of my own theories about training, and I wanted to see if I could beat my own personal best in the 50 freestyle. So I did no butterfly training, no backstroke training, but I entered those two 50s at the Nationals. And I remember going for the 50 backstroke. And in the warm-up, right, like, they've got the ledges. I swam so long ago. They didn't have the ledges. So I'm practicing this in warm-up, and I literally, like, fully backflipped. Like, I went up and landed horizontal, and in Michael's face, I was just like, oh, this is going to go well. But I managed to do a couple and then got the whole arch, and I did manage to do a proper start. But lining up there, I had what I said before about the specificity of training. I was like, I've not trained for this, but I know how to swim backstroke and I know I'm strong. So, like, let's just see what my body can do. And I ended up getting second in that. You know, and like the mindset was just, I'm strong.
Yes.
Let's just go. And like, it probably was the most ugly, untechnical backstroke ever. And I absolutely brute forced it, which would not get me to a very fast 100, but it did get me to a good 50.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the greater things about strength and conditioning. It's great for your body, but especially as we age, it can give you a bit more confidence as well.
And you touched on the mental component of swimming, right? I mean, often ice swimming is an example again as well, right? If you think too much about it, you're gonna freak yourself out. You're gonna stop. Whereas I find if you just switch off and just do what needs to be done, things happen naturally, right?
Yeah, and you get to live in your body, which is so nice, because we spend so much time thinking and over-analysing and ruminating, and then if you can just manage to just live inside, that sounds really weird, but you know, you're just in your body rather than in your head. That's can definitely help to perform better.
Especially the ice swimming, there's nothing left, it's just you and your body.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you reckon the level of New Zealand swimming is at the moment, sort of on a national basis compared to the rest of the world?
I haven't really looked at the national results versus other national results. I think we've got an amazing group of performing athletes. You know, you look at the likes of Erica and Lewis, they're definitely within, you know, swimming is one of the most global, most competitive sports, and for them to be within the top 10 even is pretty incredible. In terms of how we stack up, I can't give a educated opinion. I'd have to go and look at the stats and see how we compare. But what I think is challenging for us is it's not a cool sport here, right? Like you go to Australia, swimming is a national sport, and we wonder why they've got so many Olympic gold medalists and world record holders. And I'm thinking, well, it's their rugby, it's their cool thing to do. And when you've got 100 people thinking something's awesome, training together, trying to be better, and you've got a group of 10, you're going to get more success, or, you know, just more energy, more everything.
I think it all sort of adds on to itself. When we were talking to Alex, he got so much of a visit to Aussie because everything was just more intense. And because there were so many people in the same sort of space, they kind of all fed on each other's energy. Whereas doing it on your own is just harder.
And you can absolutely do it, but it's challenging to sustain it. And I think, like, one of the things I noticed when I was still racing for North Shore, and my coach at the time, he was saying all these splits that we should be hitting. I was thinking, this is absolutely insane. Like, it was outside of what I felt was possible, but then doing things as small as going across the ditch and racing New South Wales champs. And you're seeing these girls actually do what your coach is saying, and to see it and it made it less fictitious.
It's like more achievable.
Yeah, because you're actually seeing people do what's being said. But if you haven't seen it, it's actually kind of hard to conceptualise and make it a possible thing in your head, which is why I think it is important. But it's expensive exposure, seeing what the rest of the world is doing, and doing it on a regular basis. That's what amazes me. They can just perform and perform and perform, you know. It's pretty amazing.
All right, so what's on the bucket list? What's down the road?
That is a big question mark at the moment. I actually said before we got started, I've not been swimming as much as normal recently. I've been enjoying a bit of, well, I say enjoying, I've been trying to run not a natural runner.
Swimmers don't run.
Heart rate 170 within about 4 steps. Oh my gosh. But what I'm actually not sure. Like as I said, I've relaunched the online squad, so I've been enjoying kind of programming and thinking what would be the best for other people at the moment. But I mean, I'm a bit sad I'm not going to the ice swimming world champs. That's where I'm at right now. But otherwise,
what made you decide not to go?
I mean, it's like a double-edged sword. I've managed to buy a house with my partner. So the mortgage, that looming mortgage, the fear of, I think, the fundraising would have, possibly done it, but the fear of the unknown, it was financial. It was financial.
It's expensive. It's hella expensive.
I have another reason why. It was hard. It's going from, I love swimming in warm water, right? I do the cold water swim. I love swimming in the summer in Auckland, and to go over and swim in 5-degree water while it's warm back home. I mentally. No.
Yeah. Oh, I will be doing the hooker downriver swim, so that's a good fun. Yeah.
That's in February, right?
Yeah. So that'll be good. But otherwise, no, hoping to get a few more events and actually get a bit brave and do some summer ocean swimming.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
I think you see more runners converting to swimming than swimmers converting to running.
Yeah, and I'm taking it very short because I like my hips and knees not sore. So, I'm not going to go out and start running ultras anytime soon.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Laura, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your story. Maybe hopefully let's catch up in a couple of months' time or a year's time and see how the open water component is doing. Are you going to come down to St. Bathans next year?
Very keen.
And try a mile?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Just do it.
When I finished the K...
Sue said just do it.
I know. When I finished the K, I was berating myself because my first thought was wow, there's still the mile.
Yes.
There's still the mile. Yeah, but to anyone listening, though, who's like, why would you go and do that cold water swimming? It is such an experience that you almost can't, as you said, I mean, you've done the most insane stuff. What are you, the longest New Zealand cold water swimmer?
Well, so
how many Ks and what was the temp?
2,250 metres, 2.5 degrees Celsius. But if I can do that, and I'm not a swimmer, right? You've seen my technique.
You can swim for 24 hours straight. I would say that you are a swimmer.
I had about 4 offers of technical coaching after that ice swim, saying, "Hey, dude, we can help you with your swimming." But my point is, if I can do that, guys like yourself and the rest of the sort of proper swimming community should be able to kill that. Legitimately, if I can do that, the benchmark for you guys going forward over the next couple of years is over 3Ks, with no doubt in my mind.
You also mentioned the proper swimmers. This is one thing I do find, holds a lot of people back. If they didn't grow up swimming, they're like, I'm not a swimmer. You know what? I can barely break 6 minutes per K running, but I'm a runner because I physically run.
I do consider myself a proper swimmer, but I'm a hacker or a splasher. I'm a noodle, not a needle.
And you know what? I absolutely love that because if someone comes to me and they're like, I just love swimming and I've got a horrific technique and I don't want to work on it, I'm like, honestly, you do you. If you're getting out and you're swimming...
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, you actually don't need to improve if you don't want to, as long as you're doing what you
As long as you're not getting injured.
Right? Yes, absolutely. That's the one caveat.
If you can just keep on going and enjoying it, then that's cool. If you're getting injured, change it up just so that you enjoy it.
Because that's what will give people that lifelong love. I think seeking out some improvement, I love doing that, but if you're just happy doing it and you're going to do it for the rest of your life and not be injured, 100%. So the mile, undecided, but I would like to be in St. Bathans and I would like anyone listening to just have a go. I had never swum in sub 15 degrees before that, and Alex turned it on 2.1 degrees.
Yes.
What an
did turn it on, hey?
Yeah. And the best part about ice swimming is you had that range, right? You had Cameron and I who are former New Zealand reps, all the way to people that they wouldn't consider themselves swimmers, but they do swim, but they
setting massive personal goals and massive achievement and getting the same amount of support and shouting from the sidelines as what you were getting, right?
Yeah,
Which is pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Awesome community.
Oh.
That's cool. Thank you so much. I've
thanks.
thoroughly enjoyed the chat, and
Yeah, no, thank you.
All the best for whatever's in the future.
Yeah, and you too.
Well, thanks for listening. As always, if you've got any comments, suggestions, or helpful tips for us, just reach out to us at cleverdicksnz@gmail.com, or you can give us a comment on our Instagram page. See you around. Bye.